For a good portion of my life, I hate myself. And this hate wasn't childish or lighthearted. This was genuine, unadulterated self hate rooted in my insecurities.
I can do it. I can do it. I can do it. But I'm only human.
With weight and body image for a very long time. I have struggled with feeling inadequate and unworthy of something or someone. But most importantly, I have definitely struggled with self-acceptance. These things are kind of expected. I grew up during the birth of social media. I watched reality television take over. I grew up in an era where it was okay to be anything or anyone else but yourself. And I grew up in an era where everyone was unhappy with their bodies and everyone wanted to be someone else. Everyone wanted to look like someone else. I wanted to be someone else. I wanted to look someone else. You know, you either had the look or you didn't have the look. You know, I wanted to look like someone. I wanted to be like someone, you know? And it's funny because I'm saying I grew up in that era as though it's over, but I genuinely believe that it's actually gotten worse because of this need to be someone that isn't you. You know, like I said, you either have the look or you don't have the look. And everyone is searching for that look because it's so much pressure to look a certain way. It's so much pressure to be, to act, to speak, to behave a certain way. I would definitely say that a large part of my insecurities started when I began puberty. So what had happened was I went to bed looking like a child, the child that I was, because I was like 12, 13, and I woke up 6 inches taller and with massive breasts, you know? I've been this height since I was 12 years old, and it's actually crazy, but it's okay. I always felt as though my childhood was cut short. As a matter of fact, if I were to be honest, I still do feel as if my childhood was cut short, and it had nothing to do with my body. But it had everything to do with society's reaction to my body. And it wasn't a good reaction because society doesn't like things that are not the normal or not the average. It's very hard for society to adapt. And before society adapts, it would definitely make that person or make that thing feel as though they don't belong. And that's how I felt. That's how I was made to feel. I felt as though I was an anomaly. I felt as if I did something wrong, as though I was the reason why I looked so mature for my age. And I didn't like the attention that my new body brought me. It wasn't good. I didn't like how it shifted the narrative on who I was as a person. I was a child, but on one hand, I had men who were nothing short of pedophiles. And you'll be surprised how many very weird and strange males we have in our society today. It's actually very weird and strange. But yeah, on one hand, I had these men who, although I physically still looked like a child, I mean, most of the times I would be in my school uniform They only saw the developed aspect. Yeah, most of the things that they did were nothing short of borderline sexual harassment, and that was a problem for me because it just it it was attention that I didn't want. It was bad attention, you know. And some people say, "Oh, all attention is good attention." No, it was really bad attention, and it made me just want to retreat further into this cave that I built for myself. On the other hand, I had the women in the society. I had the aunties and the Grammys and the mothers. Basically, saw me as this developed child and just categorized me into this stereotype. And for those of you who don't know, in my society, it's a stereotype that girls who are very developed, physically developed, because there's a difference between being physically developed and mentally developed. Girls who are very physically developed at a very young age, being very forward for their age and being involved in like sexual activity. And so a lot of women automatically assume that that was me because I was developed for my age. And so I didn't know what to do because it was not me. I was 13, I was 14. I was so far away from any of that. Like, my mind was where you expected a 13-year-old's mind to be. I would watch Nickelodeon, Disney Channel. I was still watching iCarly. I would call my friends on Skype just to talk about SpongeBob. Like, it actually, first of all, I looked like a hot mess anyway. So, I really didn't understand that all of that combined just created a very toxic situation. And what made it worse was that I was already struggling with weight. That toxicity took a toll on me. I couldn't look in the mirror without wanting to adjust a part of my body, and eventually I couldn't look in the mirror at all because I didn't like what I saw. When I talk about it, I often say I've been starving since I was 12 years old. And people laugh and say, "Oh my gosh, you're so outrageous. What do you mean you've been starving? If you were starving since you was 12 years old, you would have been dead," right? But no, seriously, like, I've been starving since I was 12 years old. I've been starving physically and emotionally because I lost that bond with myself. Because I did not like who I was. I did not like who I saw. And that resulted in me losing a good part of who I was. And me losing the connection to who I was on the inside and to the core of my beliefs. I expected that as I got older and with experience, things would change, things would be different. I expected that the insecurities that I had would be a thing of the past, but that was not true, okay? Because one thing about insecurity is it's definitely a domino effect. If you do not address it from the start, it's only going to add on different layers. It's going to become multi-dimensional. And that's what happened because I never addressed my weight and my body image then. It led me to develop insecurities surrounding race, my intellect, my emotions, and it just made everything worse. At one point, I was just a complete mess because I didn't like anything about myself. I didn't like how I looked. I didn't like how I thought. I didn't like how I felt. You know, I didn't like anything. I thought that I would never like anything about it. Wasn't until a little while after my 18th birthday that I realized that I hated myself was because I didn't know who I was. I didn't know who I was anymore. I didn't know what I liked. I didn't know what I believed. And because I didn't have that bond with myself, I didn't know what I liked. See, when I was 10 years old, if someone asked me what my favorite color was, I would say pink. Pink is my favorite color. I love pink. But when I was 18 and someone would ask me, "Oh, what's your favorite color?" I would say, "I don't have a favorite color." But that was just code for I don't know what my favorite color is because I don't know anything about myself. The one question I would ask myself is that how could I appreciate something that I hated? So how could I appreciate myself if I hated myself? If I didn't know myself? You can't love a stranger. Now, I know that Hollywood has programmed all of us into this thought that, oh my gosh, you could love a stranger, love at first sight. And no, like, you cannot love a stranger. You can like a stranger. You could wish nothing but the best for a stranger, but you cannot love a stranger. And I was a stranger to myself, and so I couldn't love myself. And that was the root, the foundational unit of all of my insecurities. That it was because I didn't know myself that I fell out of love with myself. And because I fell out of love with myself, I turned to society to fill the void that I felt. And guess what? Society is not going to fill that void. Society is going to say, okay, I see that you have space for this, this, and this, and they are going to put their own ideals into those slots. And the situation is just going to be worse. You're going to be worse off than when you were at the beginning, because society doesn't know who we are. Society is always going to be the ideal, and you may not be a generalized ideal. You may just as well be your own ideal, and that's perfectly fine. Basically, I had to reintroduce who I was to myself. It wasn't an instant fix. It didn't happen with a snap of the fingers. It didn't happen because I wished upon a star or some genie magically granted me this wish. It took time, and it's still taking time, and it's a gradual process, you know, to understand who you are. Outwards for validation, that I had to look inwards, because the validation that counts the most is my own personal validation. I realized that continuing to live life hating myself would be like living just to die. And I didn't want to live that way. I didn't want to be an empty cup, you know, trying to fill others when I can't even fill myself. Things changed when I could finally look in the mirror and recognize things about myself that I no longer wanted. When my heart that was filled with hate turned into a heart that is filled with love. And this happened because I searched for me. And when I searched for me, I found me. And when I found me, I chose me. And because I chose me, I learned to love